good? What's good? I want to give all praises to the Most High, and we do so in His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai. Right? I know y'all see the title, and we're gonna talk about the the real and the fake. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna get an understanding, because we got a group of people that go around claiming to be the descendants of this book, what we call the Bible, calling themselves Israelites or Jews or whatever. For the most part, they call themselves Israelis, right? So, and we're going to go through like one of the key chapters in this book that Israelites use to identify themselves, or, not just Israelites, but how we can identify ourselves as the people of this book, through prophecy. And, so like, one of the, prophecy, and not only through prophecy, history, and archaeology can prove who we are. But, we're going to deal with these prophecies that's written in Deuteronomy 28. And we're going to do what they call a process of elimination, right? And see who this, more, who this is more, applicable to versus the other people that claim to be the descendants. Because it's a big uproar on who's this and who's that, right? So, we're going to get a little understanding, right? Hold on 1 second. So yeah, we're gonna start off with like I said, we're gonna start off with Deuteronomy 28 real quick, verse 16, right? We're gonna get right into it. And no, matter of fact, just get a classic. Hold on 1 second. So we gotta set the precedent. 1 second. Come on back. Dang. Matter of fact, let's start off with Revelation, chapter 2, verse 9. So it says now, this Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, and it says, I know thy works and tribulation. So now this is, Yahweh Shai, who the world called Jesus, is speaking on the so-called Israelites, the Jews. It says, I know thy works and tribulation, meaning that these Israelite people are, are going through different and tribulations, throughout their time, right? It says, I know thy works and tribulations, right? And it says, and poverty. So these people, not only are they being, going through tribulation, and they also, in poverty. Collectively, they are an impoverished group, right? And it says, but thou art rich, meaning they're a spiritual rich because they have the kingdom, because the kingdom belongs to them. And I know the blasphemy of them that say they are Jews, but are not, but are the synagogues of Satan, right? So you have, so it's making a differentiation between these people who's going through tribulation and having hard times and being persecuted wherever they at and wherever they go, versus these other people that's calling themselves Jews but are not, but are the synagogues of Satan. And we know who sits up in the synagogues, right? One more. It's Revelation 3 and 9. Behold, I will make them the synagogue of Satan. And the synagogue of Satan means chief house of the devil, chief house of Satan. That's the top house of Satan, right? That's what synagogue means, chief house. Which say they are Jews but are not. So it's some people going around that been saying that they're Jews, but they are not, right? And us collectively, we're not going around speaking like that. We're not going around telling people that we're Jews. A lot of us coming into the understanding that that perhaps we are the people of this book, but that was not propagated among the world on who the Jews are. But there's a certain group of people that is propagated among the world claiming to be Jews. It says, "Behold, I will make them the synagogue of Satan," meaning the chief house of the devil, "which say they are Jews, but are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them come and worship at thy feet." So whoever these people going around that's claiming to be Jews, they're going to be forced to worship at the real Jews' feet, whoever they are, right? We can take that off. We can take it off of us for a second. Say whoever they are, right? And I will make them come and worship at thy feet, and know that I have loved thee. Meaning, he's going to show who he really loved in that day. And a lot of those people are going to be found liars. Let's get one more. Inherited lies. Let's get one more. It's Jeremiah 16 and 19. It says, "O Lord, my strength and my fortress and my refuge in the day of affliction." Because the real Jews, the real Israelites are in affliction. We're going through things. And it says, "And the Gentiles should come to thee." And the Gentiles are people that's outside of Israel. That's not Israelites. It says, "And the Gentiles shall come to thee from the ends of the earth," meaning from all over the world. And what's going to happen? From the ends of the earth, and say, "Surely our fathers have inherited lies." So these people that's going around with their false religions, their false ideologies and philosophies, they're gonna come to a realization in that day that they inherited lies, that they've been lied to their whole life about the world and how things is, right? Then it says, "Surely our fathers have inherited lies, vanity." So it's a vain thing for these people to believe in what they believe in because they don't have the truth. It says, "And vanity in things wherein there's no profit." So they're going to figure out that worshiping these false religions that they've been following and all these other things that they, philosophize and propagate, they're going to realize there's vanity in it and that there's no profit in it. It's worth nothing because they're going to understand in that day who the real people are, right? So now let's get into it, right? So now it's Deuteronomy 28 and 16. And it says, curse, because now when you get into Deuteronomy 28 and 16 all the way down to 68, these are future prophecies that Moses said was going to happen to the children of Israel, when they disobey God's laws. And not only are these future prophecies, these are a list of punishments that the Most High God uses to punish the children of Israel, because the children of Israel is his people. So just like your parents got certain punishments that they may use to punish you, how a parent might have certain lists of punishments that they might do to punish their child. The Most High has punishments that He used to punish His people. So, and every time His people go off into different, religions and philosophies, He will punish them in such a way. And so not only that, and these are also future prophecies that apply to us, and we can see. So just check it out. So it says, this is 28 and 16, Deuteronomy. Cursed shall thou be in the city, and cursed shall thou be in the field. So when you look around in these cities across America, any city you go to, who's in the ghettos, who's in the slums, you know, who's you know, living in the worst conditions with, in every city you go to. You can go to any project around the world. Who you gonna see? You're gonna see us, black and brown people, right? And it says, "Curse shall be in the field." And who was cursed in the field? We know about slavery, picking cotton, the tobacco field, the sugarcane field, the the rice field. All these different agriculture labors that we was forced to do, and then we didn't reap no benefits from, right? So, what did it say? So it says, "And curse should be in the field," right? And then just boom, boom, boom. Then it says, "Curse shall be thy basket in thy store," meaning you're gonna be economically oppressed. Okay, so it says, "Curse shall be thy basket in thy store." So you're gonna be economically oppressed. You're not gonna be able to obtain wealth like that. Yeah, they might show you a few, people on TV that's millionaires and all that stuff, but that's just a dog and pony show, because collectively, you know, we can't get bank loans. We get red line. We get discriminated on our zip code and different things, right? So, it says, "Curse shall be uh, thy basket in thy store." So, even if you try to obtain wealth, you try to put some money to the side, there's always something that happens, right? Either, like I said, you might be saving up some money, then all of a sudden somebody come and break in your house and steal everything, or you got some type of emergency that you have to take that money that you've been saving and put it towards that. Now you back to square one again, right? And in various different ways it happens. So then it says, "Curse shall thou be when thou comest, and curse shall be when thou goest." Meaning, when you're born into this world, you're born into a bad situation. Whether your parents on dope, you're born poor, in a poor household, single parent household, in a bad situation. Then when you die, you're gonna be cursed when you die, because either you're gonna die broke, you're gonna have a problem with your funeral arrangements. You're not gonna be able to, you know, put the person in the ground because either you didn't have life insurance or burial insurance or whatever the case may be. It's gonna be a lot of problems when you die and when you go. And you know how it be. Sometimes when somebody died, the family be fighting over this and that. And so it says, "Curse shall thou be when thou comest, and curse shall thou be when thou goest." So, like I said, when you're born into a bad situation. When you die, it's gonna be a bad situation amongst yourself and the people. Because a lot of times people take on your debt. If you died, you owe some money, then the bank don't care that you did. They're gonna come and go to the next kin to try to get that money. And it says, "The Lord shall send uh, the Lord shall send upon thee cursing and vexation and rebuke, and all that thou settest thy hand unto uh, to do until thy be destroyed." Meaning, whatever you try to prosper in, you're not going to be prosperous in doing it. It's always going to be an uphill battle. It's always going to be turmoil as you're trying to complete whatever you're trying to do. And you're always gonna have to need a helping hand to get over that hump. You're not gonna just be able to just do this or that, or if you do, it's gonna be very strenuous to complete that task. That's why a lot of times we end up getting prideful when we do complete certain things. We're like, yeah, I got it out the mud. I did this. I did that. Because it was so hard for you to attain those certain goals, because you fighting against the grain. So it says, "The Lord shall send upon thee cursings, vexations, and rebuke, and all that thou settest thy hand unto, for for to do until thou be destroyed, until thou perish quickly because of the wickedness of thy doing. Hereby has forsaken me. So a lot of times too, people try to end up try to make money the fast way. There's stories of people like this boy tried to steal this woman's car at gunpoint, but he didn't know that she had a gun, and she ended up toe tagging him. I seen a video the other day. This boy tried to carjack this white dude, and the white boy put out a gun and clapped him right then and there. So like I said, so you're gonna be trying to do these different things, and and it's not gonna work because you're gonna be trying to get things in a fast way, and it's gonna end up in a lot of times your death or destruction. And it says, the Lord should make the pestilence cleave unto thee until he have consumed thee from off the land whither thou goest, and possess it. So, for a long time we had the highest HIV rate, AIDS rate. What they say? 1 out of 5 women got herpes. So we are living those things, and those people that claim to be these people, they're not going through none of this stuff that we just read. We're not even done yet. And I'm not saying these things affect every last person, because like I said, these things applies to to us in different moments of time, but at the same time we all have been affected by it. Let me see. And the Lord shall smite thee with a consumption, and with fever and inflammation and extreme burning, and with the sword, and with blasting of the mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thy perish. So like I said, we have a high disease rate. A lot of times we get sick, and then a lot of times we don't have the medical care to get ourselves right, the insurance and all that cool stuff. So we end up dying from these infectious diseases a lot of times. That if we have the proper care, that we can probably actually survive. But so that's not affecting the so-called small hat people with the curly hair, right? Then it says, in the heaven, in thy heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, meaning how they say, so high you can't get over it, so low you can't get under it. Meaning no matter how hard you strive, it's just gonna seem like you're hitting a wall. Like you just can't get over that hump. It's like, man, it's like, dang, I try so hard, and I just keep on running into these same old problems and stuff, right? So it says, thy heaven shall be over thy head, shall be brass, and the earth under thy feet shall be iron. Meaning it's gonna be very rough to do what you're trying to do. You're gonna have to. It's always gonna be an uphill battle. For you to just live your life, and you're gonna, it's gonna. Those people, like I said, they're not going through that, right? Then it says, and the Lord shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust, and from heaven it shall come down upon thee until thou be destroyed. Meaning, like I said, like anything we have is going to wither away. We're not going to be able to, maintain certain things. That's why they say, oh, you can't, black people don't know how to keep things nice, or you can't give nice things to black people, or whatever, how they say. How the saying goes. Because everything, is just going to be, wither away. Rather somebody come and destroy it. You got somebody that, come over your house, they want to mess up your nice furniture because they ain't got it. You get a car, somebody want to burn holes in your car seats. I mean, this, it sounds cliche. I'm just, giving a little surface level examples, but I'm just saying, like, just stuff like that. Then it says, and the Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thy enemies. Meaning, our enemies is not just of our own people. Our enemies is these other nations, and you can read about that in Psalms 83. And so it says, "And the Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thy enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them and flee in 7 ways." Y'all seen it before. Y'all be chilling on a corner one day, and one police officer will scare about 10 niggas away. It's 10 of y'all on the block, but one police officer show up. Everybody start running different ways, start walking off different ways. And it's 10 of y'all. So it says y'all should be smitten in front of your enemies, and then you should flee in 7 different ways. And that's what happens to us when we see them people. You can not be doing anything. You can just be, even at work. You at work talking to somebody. Then here comes your manager. Now y'all splitting up, trying to act like y'all doing something. So it says, "And the Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before your enemies." So that's what happened when these police officers kill us in the streets. It's all on the news. They see what happened. But what do they tell you? Oh, we got to investigate to see what happened. It's on camera. What do you need to investigate for? If I go in a store and rob it and they got me on camera, ain't no damn investigation about that. They going to lock me up. But these people can kill you on camera, and then they want to investigate it. Right? That's crazy, right? They beat in 92 or 93, something like that. They beat Rodney King on camera. And they had a long, drawn-out trial about that. Like, what is it to figure out? You see them beating them on camera. So that's what I'm saying. It says, "And the Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thy enemies, and thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them. And it shall be removed unto all kingdoms of the earth." So that's what happened through conquest, too. Through war and slavery, we all got spread it out through all different parts of the world. "And thy carcass shall be meat unto the fowls and of the air, unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away." You saw what's that song? "Strange Fruit." Like in Mississippi, they used to hang us on the trees and just leave our bodies there for the birds and the other animals to pick at us. Or sometimes too, like nowadays, if the police shoot you, you be laying on the streets for hours and hours, just sitting there for the whole neighborhood, and everybody can see you just laying there, and so like I said, this is prophecy that's only happening to our people. The so-called curly hair, small hat people is not going through this, because Moses, through Yahweh, told this is what's going to happen to the children of Israel in the future, right? Because it says right here, "But it shall come to pass if thou wilt not hearken," meaning listen to the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee. So this is a prophecy saying that if you don't listen to the commandments of God, all these things is going to happen to you. And they have happened to us over the last 500 years. And you know why they happen to us for the most part? Because when you go to church tell you that the laws are done away with, that you don't have to follow the law, that Jesus died on the cross and you don't got to follow the law. Obviously we do. If you read this chapter and look at how we've been living for the last 500 years, obviously we need to follow these commandments for we can get out of the situation. And that's not what Jesus came to do. We can get into that too one of these days. So then, where are we at? It says, "And the Lord shall smite thee with a box of Egypt, and with embroids, and with the scab, and with the itch thereof, thou can't be healed. Thou canst not be healed," right? So like I said, it's talking about diseases, whether you want to call it, sexually transmitted diseases or whatever, just talking about these different diseases that our people suffer from. When you look at the statistics, we have a high rate of these different diseases. Even when this COVID stuff happened, what did they say on the news? That, black Hispanics and Native Americans are at the higher risk of catching this so-called virus, right? And that's, the news said that. And then we read in the Bible that we're going to be susceptible to these different diseases when we don't follow God's laws. So it says, and the Lord shall smite thee with madness, meaning he's going to make you insane in the membrane, crazy. That's why you see a lot of our people talking to themselves, or just, out of their mind, for whatever reason. Brain just fried. And it says, and thou shalt smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. Meaning, like I said, you see people on the street all the time that's just crazy. You might be on a train, see people talking to themselves, doing crazy stuff, and we don't understand that that is a spiritual curse that God put on our people, that led that person to do those things. So, and it says, and thou should grope at noonday as a blind grope in darkness. Meaning, that's why you got some people just out on the streets. They don't got nowhere to go, nothing to do. They just out. They just lost. Sometimes they might sit at the train station. Sometimes they might sit at the library. They just lost. They just out here doing things. And it says, thou should grope at noonday as a blind grope in darkness. Meaning, they don't know which way is up. They don't have no direction. They just out here just living day to day. They don't, whatever which way the wind blow, it's cool. They just don't know what to do. They just out here. It says, and thou should grope at noonday as a blind grope in darkness. Thou should not prosper in thy ways. Thou shalt only be oppressed and spoiled evermore. No man shall save thee. So that's why you got a lot of our people that be wanting help that might need help, but they can't get the help that they need. Either because they're too far gone in their way of life that they're doing, or just people just don't want to deal with them. And try to take the extra patience and time to try to help that person for whatever reason. So, and you see this happening. So this is not happening to those so-called people with the curly hair and the small hats. This is happening to the black and brown people. And we can see this across the board. Go to any hood across America, you're going to see people like this. So it says, and thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Didn't that happen in slavery? You have your wife during slavery time, then here come master, come knock on the door, take your wife into the house. He has sex with her, then give her back to you. There ain't nothing you can do about it. It says, thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Right? And even nowadays, you can have you a girl, and now you done went to work trying to, be a good nigga, right? Do the good nigga thing. Then some other man sneaking over, leaving out through the back door while you creeping in through the front door. And it happens. And it says that thou shalt have betrothed a wife, and another man shall lie with her. And that happens all the time in our community. Now, and especially back then, like I said, during slavery, when the master used to come and just, take your wife. What's that movie, was it 12 Years a Slave or something like that? Where dude just took his wife, or was it Django? One of the two, and, just took his old dude wife and did what he wanted to do with it. And dude couldn't do nothing but just sit there and wait until she get back. Right? Then, that didn't happen to the so-called curly hair, small hat man, right? Then, it says, thou shalt build a house and not dwell in it. And, so we built the White House. We didn't end up we didn't live in a White House. We built it. We built, a lot of our, Northern Kingdom brothers, our Issachar brothers, they A lot of them is in construction now, building up these nice houses that they themselves can't afford to live in. You know, a lot of our Mexican brothers is building up these houses. You see them working, doing roofing and all that stuff, working on these people houses that themselves can't even afford to build in, to live in. I mean, and like I said, during slavery, we built this place. We built almost everything, and we didn't live in the houses after we built them. We had to stay in a shack somewhere, right? And it says, "Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build a house, and thou shalt not dwell in it. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and thou shalt not gather the grapes." So, that, like I said, during slavery, we was the sharecroppers. We planted all the crops during the spring and summertime and all that stuff. You know, we plant all these different crops during, but we didn't reap the benefits of being a sharecropper. You know, when we was in slavery, all that went to master, right? So the so-called curly hair, small hat people can't say they did that, right? What they tell you when they talk about their atrocities and their hardship, they talk about um what's that 1940s something. You know, that's the only thing they can speak of, and that's not even in the Bible. You're not gonna find what happened in the 1940 something in the Bible, but we can find our history for the last 500 years in the Bible that we read now, as we can see. So it's not talking about that. And it says, "Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and thou shalt not thou shalt not gather the grapes thereof. Thy ox shall be slain before thy eyes." That's what happened when these people came over to America. They killed 100,000 buffaloes to stop the Native Americans from eating, to starve out the Native American people. Not only that, when they took us from the west coast of Africa, you know, they talk about how they stole us from Africa, but they don't talk about they not only did they steal us, they took our cattle too. They took our cows, they took our, you know, our chickens, whatever we had over there. They brought that over here with us. But of course, they didn't give it to us once we got off the slave ships. They kept it, right? That's what they did. So it says, "Thy ox shall be slain before thy eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thy ass shall be violently taken away before thy face." So these people, like I said, they stole everything. They forcibly took our cattle and our livestock away from us. Not only did they kidnap us, they took our livestock too. You know, along with our silver and gold and stuff like that we had at one point in time. And we forget about all that. It says, "And thou shalt not be restored to thee," and they haven't been restored to us. That's why we still, you know, got to work a 9 to 5. You know, we got to wait on tax time. You know, to get a little extra money. You know, we got to do little scams and other little side hustles to get a little extra money, because what they had took from us have not been restored. Then when we ask about reparations, they look at us like we talking crazy, like we talking Chinese, like we speaking a foreign language, because they would not restore it to us. They're not planning on restoring it to us, right? But they can give those people over in Ukraine almost $100 billion for what? Just to lose? Because that's what's gonna happen in the end, right? And it says, thy sheep shall be given unto thy enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them. So, like I said, they took our livestock, they took our cattle. Not only did they steal us, they stole our cattle, and they took our livestock. Then it says, "Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people." What did that sound like? Slavery, right? Can those people say that happened to them? No. That's why I say, I know, I know, I know. You know how that song goes. You ain't the nigga you say you is, right? You not those people. We are those people that we reading about in this book, right? So they can't say that. When we read this stuff, it you know, it identifies more with us, right? It says, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thy eyes shall not, and thy eyes shall look and fail for longing for them. Meaning, you saw, like I said, you saw all those, every slave movie you can think of. When the master come and take the baby, soon as the baby born from the mother, they take the baby and sell it off, and the mother just be crying, and she can't do nothing about it. She can beg and plead that he don't do it, but she's at his mercy. You know, so you're not gonna. What it says, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thy eyes shall long for and fail longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thy hand. Meaning, when master came in and said, "Give me that baby, I'm gonna sell it." You couldn't raise up and fight him and knock him out and say no, because you didn't have no might to do it. Because number one, we was under fear, and number two, like I said, they would have killed you. You ain't got no army. Then the men was butt broken, so they not gonna, so it was all jacked up. So you didn't have no might. We didn't have no army, nobody to come in and rescue us, right? And people want to talk about being thinking that we're African, right? So where's the Africans at that supposedly come and help us, and rescue us from all this, right? That didn't happen, right? We've been over for 500 years. I ain't seen no African shot one bullet over here for us, right? But we think we African. Africans is not getting killed in the street by the police. We are. It's a spiritual thing. It's not about color. Because if it was about color, Africans would be getting killed in the streets by the police. The East Indians, which is dark like us, they be getting killed in the street by the police. But it's not happening like that. It's only happening to us because it's a spiritual thing. Right? So it says, where are we at? Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people. Thy eyes shall look upon them and fail for longing for them, for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thy hand. The fruit of thy land and thy labor shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up. So, like I said, we didn't know these Europeans when they came and took us, but everything that we worked for and did in them fields, they came and kept it for themselves. That's what happened during slavery. So it says, the fruit of thy land and thy labor shall a nation that which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always. Those people are not oppressed; they are doing the oppressing. That's why they made Kyrie apologize, because they're doing the oppressing. They took $2 billion from Kanye less than 24 hours. They're doing the oppressing. We think if we get a certain amount of money, we done made it. We don't forgot that this is their money. This is their system. They decide who's rich and who's not rich, and they will take it from you if they have to, and they will, and they proven that. So you're still a slave, and people don't understand that we're still slaves. We're still captive here in America. Just because they took the chains off your neck, it's on your mind now. It's on our minds, and like I said, so that's what's happening now. And we gotta understand that. It says, so that thou shalt be mad, so that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thy eyes which thou shalt see. So yeah, it's gonna make us go crazy. It's gonna make us, upset us to see these things, because we're not gonna be able to do anything about it. Because if we could, we would have been got ourselves out of the situation. Then even if we do try to do a little something, they destroy it. Like Tulsa, Oklahoma, Rosewood, all these different areas that we tried to do a little something, that they end up bombing or burning down, right? It says, the Lord shall smite thee in the knees. So then, that's an interesting one. Lord shall smite thee in the knees. How many, people who had hoop dreams, NFL dreams, but then all of a sudden you get a knee injury, and now you can't hoop no more. You like 20 something years old, no colleges won't take you, because you got like this injury that you just suffered in high school or whatever, or maybe you got into a car accident. Now you all jacked up, or you could have been doing your profession, then all of a sudden you suffer this injury. Now you got bad knees, or just arthritis. Period. You know, it says the Lord shall smite thee in the knees and in the legs with a sore botch that that cannot be healed. So you got that what they call chronic back pain, right? Like Scottie Pippen was going through that, and he's a six-time champion. Chronic back pain. Shaquille O'Neal had to retire from basketball because he had chronic pain in his foot. Even after the surgeries and all that stuff, right? So these are the things that we suffer from. Then it says, and the Lord shall bring thee, and the Lord shall bring thee and thy king which thou shalt set over thee into a nation, and the Lord shall bring thee and thy king which thou hast set over thee unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shall thou serve other gods, wood and stone. So it says it's gonna take our kings, our mighty men, and we saw roots. Saying like a lot of Kunta Kinte, he was part of a royalty when he was over in Africa, and when he got taken over, that's why he was so proud. He didn't want to. He didn't want to say that he was Kunta. They had to beat him until he finally said he was Kunta because he knew where he came from. He said, "I would take your kings, and then you make y'all serve these other people, these other nations, and these other gods, wood and stone." And what's that wood? That Christianity church that we go through with that cross. What's that stone? That cobblestone over in Mecca that the Muslims pray to. That's what's happening. Because a lot of our people is into Christianity and Islam. And not knowing that those are religions of our oppressors. That, you heard about the Arab slave trade? Those Arabs was Muslims. Those Arabs killed 200 million of our people in the name of Allah. Right? The Christians killed 300 million of our people, or 300 million of our people in the name of their Christianity, right? So then it says, and thou shalt be astonishment and a proverb, right? So thou shalt be astonishment and a proverb and a byword among all nations. Rather the Lord shall send or shall lead thee. So what's a proverb? A proverb is a wise saying that anybody can raise. What it say? An elevator can raise a family, but not a black man. All Mexicans carry knives. Black people love watermelon. Those are proverbs, little smart sayings that they got saying about our people. A byword is being called outside your God-given name. Nigga, coon, spick, wetback, all these different names that they have for us, other than calling us the child of God. Those are called bywords. And it says, among all nations, whether the Lord shall send thee, will lead thee. So the Africans, because some of us still think we're African, the Africans got a word that they use. They call us katas. Katas mean beast. That's their way of calling us niggas. They call us katas. The Chinese got a word. I forgot what that is. Every nation that we at or been to, they have a word to disrespect us in their language. We just, familiar with the word nigga. But every nation got something that they call us, right? It says, thou shalt carry much seed out of the field, and thou shalt gather but little in, for the locust shall consume it. Meaning, the locust being a metaphor for these other nations. So whatever we try to call ourselves doing, we're not going to benefit off of the work that we do. Other people's going to benefit off the work that we do. That's the same thing with this. We get into these, the music industry, the entertainment business. You sign these contracts with these people. You would think you're an artist. You paint a picture or you write you a song or whatever. You're the creator of that work. you would think that you would get majority of the pay. But the way the system is set up, that they get paid off for you doing it more than you, You know what they say, Cadillac Records, I'm gonna be rich and you're gonna be famous. You know, that's what happens. You end up being famous and they end up getting rich. That's what happens. Right? Then it says where we at? Then thou should plant a vineyard and dress them. Thou should plant a vineyard and dress them, but thou should neither drink the wine nor gather the grapes, for the worms shall eat them. Like I said, you're not going to be able to enjoy anything that you do, because these other nations would take it and eat it up. It says, thou shalt have olive trees throughout all thy coasts, but thou shalt not anoint themselves with the oil, for thy olive shall cast his fruit. For thy olive shall cast his fruit. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but uh, thou shalt beget sons and daughters. Meaning you're gonna have children. It's talking about going back to slavery. You're gonna have children, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. So what happens during when, like I said, on those plantations when you give birth to them children, you can't enjoy your child because too soon that child is old enough to walk, they put them in a cotton field. I seen pictures of a little 2, 3-year-old with a sack of on his back picking cotton. So it says you're not going to be able to enjoy your children because you're going to be oppressed and you're going to be enslaved, right? Then it says thou. Let me see where we at. And thou should beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. Like I said, no, those people can't say this happened to them. We're reading our history. We're not reading no other history of no other type of people. This is what happened to us. So it says, and the stranger, let me see now, and all the trees and all the fruit of thy land shall the locust consume, and the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. Look at your neighborhood. You got these different. You got the Indian men that own the corner store, the gas station. They making money in your neighborhood, but you can't put your own business in your neighborhood and be prosperous, right? Because the stranger among you will get up very high and you will come down very low. You know, and that's what happens a lot of times. You know, all these different nations come into our neighborhoods and open up businesses. You know, and then they put themselves up very high and we come down very low because we give them all our money instead of going to our, somebody that, a fellow black person or, so, and we give them all our money. So these strangers end up becoming very high and getting very rich, sending their kids to college off of your money, right? And it says, and that's what happens. You got all these, Indian people all through the neighborhood selling you fried chicken, uh, the Koreans selling you hair, all this different stuff, right? So it says, the stranger that is within thee, meaning like these people that's not Israelites, uh, shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. And he shall lend to thee, because we don't got no banks. We don't own no payday loans or nothing like that. We got to go to them for their little Cash America loans and payday loan. It says, he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. And he shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. So we're at the bottom of society when it comes to these things. Those so-called curly-haired people, small hats, can't say this, because they the one with the money. They the one that own the banks, right? That's why J.P. Morgan, can tell Kanye he got to get his 140 something million out of his bank, and then they can freeze in his account. They can do that. We don't have power to do that, right? It says, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and and pursue thee and overtake thee until thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments. So this is why all this stuff is happening to us, because we're not keeping God's commandments. Then on this, at the same token, we go to these churches, and the churches tell us don't keep the God's commandments because nobody can keep God's commandments. And that's not what the Bible says. The Bible says that the commandments are not grievous. They're not hard to do. It's just that we've been told not to do them. All right. So it says thou should it says moreover all these curses should come upon thee and pursue thee and overtake thee until thou be destroyed. Right? Where am I at? Yeah. Moreover, all these curses should come upon thee and shall pursue thee and overtake them until thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he command thee. Right? So that's what we got to do. We got to keep the statutes and commandments that he command us. And that's what we're not doing. That's why we suffer these different things. Right? And then, like I said, and the churches are not telling you to keep the commandments because, so, and that's what we got to do. And it says, and he shall, and they shall be upon thee for a sign. And what does a sign do? A sign lets you know where you at. A sign lets you know where you're going, right? So it says, and these shall be on you for a sign, meaning when you see these curses, when you read this stuff in this chapter, and you start looking at these things, this is going to be a sign, an indicator of whose God people is. And it says, and they shall be a sign upon thee, and they shall be a sign upon thee for. They shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. So not only is it going to happen to you, it's going to happen to your children. That's why grandma was in the ghetto. Now mama was in the ghetto. Now she raising you in the projects. In these different conditions. Mama was on public aid. Grandma was on public aid. Now you on public aid. Now you telling your kids to get on public aid. We it's going to be on your seed forever. How long is forever? Forever. But in actuality, we're going to be going through all of this until who the world called Jesus, real name Yahweh, shall come back and save us out of these conditions. Right? So that's how we're going to get redeemed out of this. Through, Yahweh Shah and Mashiach, right? So it says, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Right? So, and that's why we're going through what we're going through. Now, if the Bible's telling you that it's going to be upon your seed forever, then how could a curly hair, small hat people say that this is talking about them? Because they're not going through none of these things, right? It says, this is Jeremiah 50:6. My people has been lost sheep. Their shepherds had caused them to go astray. And our shepherds are our leaders. Our church leaders, our political leaders, our leaders, they had taught us to go astray. They caused them to go astray, and they have turned them away from the mountains, and they have gone from mountain to hill, and they have forgotten their resting place. And that's what happened. We've forgotten our resting place, which is in Yahweh, and His Son, the Mashiach Yahweh Shai. We forgot our resting place, and that's what we do. We and that's why these curses is on our people forever, and through our sons and through our seeds, right? Through our and all the way down to our children. That's why cause we the ones that talk about breaking these generational curse. We reading why we got the generational curse right now. We talk about we got to break these generational curses. This is what we're reading about right here. It says, and they shall be upon thy seed. Let me read it right. They shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, upon thy seed forever. So this is speaking about the generational curse. This is why we speak about breaking these generational curses, because we know that this has been perpetuated amongst our people for a long time. the black on black crime, the self-hatred, us not being able to save money. That's why they're talking about generational wealth, because this is all the stuff that goes on with our people. Nobody else have these conversations but us. And why? Because the Bible tells you that, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments which he had, all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So this is why we're going through all of this. But church is not going to tell you that. They just want to give you a good feel-good song enough to go in your pockets and give them all your money. Like I said, I don't want your money. I just want you to pay attention. And we can get a better understanding of what this book is saying. Right? So it says, but thou shalt serve, but thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for abundance of all things, because God would have gave us everything that we wanted. All he wanted us to do is keep his commandments. But since our ancestors and us a lot of times today don't serve God with the gladness and abundance of heart, it says, therefore thou shalt serve thy enemies, that the Lord shall send against thee in hunger. When we don't own no grocery stores, when we go to these different grocery stores, who own it? Our enemies own it. The same people that took us captive, they own it. We have to go to them for hunger, for thirst. We don't own a water company, but we got to pay a water bill every month. And water is free. Water falls from the sky. But we got to pay them for water. And we've been doing this for so long, we think this stuff is cool. And it's not. Because the Bible's telling you that it's not. It says, for in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness, when you go buy your clothes, you got to go to your enemy to get your clothes. Even if you, like a Sean John or a Rockefeller, right? Jay-Z and Puff Daddy, they don't own no textile mills. They got to go to China. They got to go to India for the textile mills. They can put their name on the clothes. They might design the clothes, but they don't own the material. So all that cotton we picked, we made this country, was it $4.7 trillion in picking cotton, and we don't own nothing when it comes to textiles. That's a curse right there. So it says, in nakedness and want of all things. Anything you want, you have to go to your enemy for. Driver's license, go to your enemy. You want to go to hair school, go to your enemy to get that certificate. You want to go to college and get your degree, you go to your enemy and learn in their schools to get your degree. Anything you want, you got to go to them for. That's a curse. It's not a curse for the so-called white man to go do these things, because this is his country. This is his people. He ain't doing nothing but, patronizing his own people. But when we do it, it's a curse, because this is not our nation. We was taken here. We were kidnapped and brought here. Right? And we got to understand that. And it says, in want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron on thy neck. Who had a yoke of iron on their neck? Look at Google's pictures of slavery, and you see how they have that yoke of iron on our neck, right? You put a collar on a dog, right? And you train that dog with that collar on. After a while, you can take that collar off, right? It says, he shall put a yoke of iron on thy neck until he has destroyed thee. And we're destroyed now. That's why the chain is not on our necks no more. We're destroyed now, because they're not worried about us rising up and doing anything. Because we're destroyed mentally and spiritually. Just like that dog, you put that collar on his neck. After a while, you can walk him without the leash. You don't need no leash no more to walk the dog. He's gonna know to stay with you. That's why we so protective of these people. You got black people that will fight you over master if you say something wrong. That's just how sick in the head we became. And it says, and he therefore Thou shalt serve thy enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst, and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron on thy neck until he hath destroyed thee. And that's what happened. He had destroyed us. Okay? Let's go to this real quick. There's a couple precepts. Jeremiah 17:4 tells you, and thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thy heritage, which I had gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thy enemies in the land which thou knowest not. Who's this talking to? It's talking about us. We're serving our enemies in a land that we did not know. We didn't know about these Americas like that. We was taken and brought over here. It says, for ye have kindled a fire in my anger, which burn forever, right? So that's why we up here, because we made God mad. And because we didn't do our end of the bargain. We had a contract with the Most High to be his people and to keep his laws, and he was going to do everything for us. But we broke that because we wanted to be like the other nations. Then God said, okay, you want to be like these other nations? I'm going to make these other nations rule over you. And you're going to see how these other nations do you. And for the last 500 years, we've been seeing how these people have been doing us. And it's not nice. And it says, back to 28 and 49. And the Lord shall bring a nation against thee from one end of the earth, as swift as an eagle. What is America's symbol? The eagle. What was the Spanish symbol? The eagle. What was the Roman signal? The eagle. So these European people, they always use the eagle as a symbol for them because because Esau blessing is to be a hunter, and an eagle is an apex predator, right? So they always kind of liken themselves as an eagle, because the eagle sits up high and he looks down on his prey and he swoop down and he take what he want, right? And that's how these people get down. They come and they take what they want. And it says, and the Lord shall bring a nation against thee on fire from a land of from one end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, and a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. So we didn't speak English when they came and got us. We didn't speak Spanish when they first came and got us. We didn't speak Portuguese when they first came and got us. You know, we didn't speak all these different languages that now that our people are speaking now. You know, but when they came, this is what happened to us. It says, in a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of old, nor show favor to the young. Like I said earlier, they had little 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds out there picking cotton. They had your grandma out there, 70, 80 years old, picking cotton. They didn't give a hoot nanny how old you was. If you can move, pick that cotton. That's how they look at it. You know what I'm saying? So it's a nation of fierce countenance, meaning these people are ruthless. And, we don't understand how ruthless these people are. Because we look at them as, being so, with no rhythm. They're like so soft-spoken. They seem like so timid and however you want to explain to them. They just bland. They're so bland. They don't even put seasoning on their food, right? So we just think that these people are just so, harmless, but we forget how ruthless these people are. We forget how many people they killed to call this place America. We forget how many people they killed to call that place Canada. We forget how many people they killed to call that place South America. We forget how many people they killed to call that place Australia. We forget these things. And every other place you see their faces at that I, forgot the name. Anywhere you see their faces at abundantly, they killed to get that place. They didn't come there peacefully. These people are not peaceful with nobody. You cannot name one instance in history where they went somewhere and they made peace. They killed everywhere they go. That's how they do. And we forget these things. And this is history. And it says, it Where we at? And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of the land until thou be destroyed, which also also shall not leave neither corn, wine, nor oil, or instance of thy kind, nor flax of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. So, like I said, he's gonna just take everything we got, you know, and then to the point that we are in famine, that we're starving, you know. So that's what causes, like I said, now we got to be under His wing, like it told you, for food, for thirst, and for clothing, for everything that we got to come to these people for, because they took it all. It says, He shall besiege, he shall he shall be he shall besiege thee in all thy gates until uh, thy uh, thy high fences walls come down, wherein thou trusted, thou shalt trusted throughout all thy land. He shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord God which the Lord thy God had given thee. Meaning, He's gonna, come into our wherever we're at. He's gonna come into our land and with conquest and take over and take us. That's what happened when we was chilling in the west coast of Africa for about a good 1,000 years. After we done ran from them the first time from the Romans in 70 A.D., now we chilling in Africa, you know, for about a good 1,000 years. They came over there. Our people was chilling in the Caribbeans after they done ran from the Babylonians and the Assyrians. They came over to the Caribbean and to the South Americas. They doing their thing, and here comes the Portuguese and the Spanish messing with them. So, like I said, that's what they do. And it says, and thou shalt eat the fruit of thy own body, and the flesh of thy sons, and thy daughters, which the Lord thy God hath given thee in the siege. So, like I said, when we get to the history of, especially 70 A.D., when the General Titus had, took down Jerusalem, it got so bad where we start resorting to cannibalism, where we have to eat our own children, our own people, because we were starving to death. That's how bad they got down on us, because they cut off our food supply. They circled our Jerusalem and wasn't letting no food come in. They shut down all our shipments until we just starved to death. Until it got to a point where we started being cannibalized, right? And that's horrible. And it says, and he shall besiege thee in thy gates, and until thy high and fences walls come down. And let me see where I'm at. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, 53. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thy own body and flesh of thy son and daughters, which the Lord thy God had given thee in the siege, and in the straitness where with thy enemies shall stress thee, right? But like I said, that happened. And it says, now, like I said, now this is, talking about black on black crime. We're about to get into that. Single parent household, domestic violence, all in this one verse right here. This is 54. Like I said, the so-called curly hair, small hat people can't say none of this. None of the stuff we're reading right now. They cannot, contest to any of this. It says, and the man that is tender among you, meaning, and the man that is tender among you and very delicate, because it was once upon a time we used to check on each other. We had like a certain type of love for each other, right? But now we have so much hatred. You see somebody walk down the block, you size them up. You ready to, you don't know what you going. You just got hatred for them. They bump you, you ready to kill them. They step on your shoes, you gonna kill them. It says, the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil towards his brother. That's black on black crime. And those people can't say they go. You don't see those two small hats fighting each other in the streets over nothing. You don't see those two curly haired people going at it over nothing. But we do that. Somebody look at you too long, you ready to fight. And it says, the tender and that so that man that was tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil towards his brother and towards his wife. So now you got domestic violence. Now this man can't stand his baby mama. Now, his baby mama is all types of bitches and hoes and all whatever type of names you can think of that a man might call his woman. It says, um, so that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes should be evil towards his brother and towards his wife. So, like I said, you got the man disrespecting the woman, you know, domestic violence. Those people can't say they go through all of that. It says, towards his wife of his bosom and towards the remnant of his children. So not only that, so not only do he being evil towards his woman, he being evil towards his children. So now the children got to suffer because of that. And guess what? What it say? Which he shall leave. So not only is he being abusive towards his woman and his children, he's also going to be known for leaving his children. So who has that reputation? The black man got that reputation of leaving his children. We run rapidly with the single parent homes. That is a curse in the Bible to be in a single parent home. I mean, God bless you. You did your best as a mother, raising your kid and all that cool stuff. But according to the Bible, that's a curse. That's not a good thing. That's not something that should be praised, to be a single parent and raising your kid, because God said that's a curse that he put on you because how we've been living. So it says, so that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil towards his brother and towards his wife of his bosom and towards the remnant of his children, which he shall leave. We are known for leaving our women when we get them pregnant. Okay, we're known for that, the black and Hispanic man. And it says, let me jump down to 56. Then it says, in a tender and delicate woman, now it's talking about our women. It says, in a tender and delicate woman, which would not venture to set her soul upon the ground, because at one point in time, our women was very prisky, very girly-like. They didn't have all this, masculine energy that a lot of our women have. They was very delicate, very princess-like. So delicate where, they wouldn't want to walk on the ground barefooted, but you got a lot of women out here walking barefooted outside and all this stuff. They bottom their feet looking like bare feet because they want to be all barefooted out here, and it says, the tender and delicate woman among you, which would not venture to set her sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness, because our woman was very delicate, and act delicate, and tenderness, her eyes shall be evil towards her husband. So now you got the woman disrespecting the man, saying, oh nigga, you ain't shit, cursing the man out all in front of his children and stuff, emasculating the man in front of his peoples. That ain't cool neither. And because a woman should be delicate and tender, not all masculine, like, she can, actually go throw hands with her man. That's not okay. And it says, in the tender and delicate woman among you, which will not venture to set her soul upon the ground for delicateness and tender, her eyes shall be evil towards her husband of her bosom and towards her son, right? We see that all the time. Oh, well, I can't stand you. You look just like your daddy. You know what I'm saying? Get away from me. You looking like your daddy right now. That's how a lot of our women talk to their children. It says, her eyes shall be evil towards the remnant of her son. Where are we at? The remnant towards her son and towards her daughter. Now she, mistreating her daughter because she's probably jealous of her daughter because her daughter is like a younger version of her. She probably, just jealous of her daughter now for whatever reason. Or this turmoil between the mother and the daughter. The mother and daughter don't get along for whatever reason it may be. But that's what happens with our women. Those curly hair, small hair people can't say this goes on in their family. but we can. Then it says, so I'm gonna skip around. I'm gonna go to 64. Then it says, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth unto the other. How did we get scattered? Through slavery and conquest. You know, that's how we got to all these different nations of the world. You know, that's why you got Tony Parker from France. You know, you got Clint Capella from Switzerland. You know, because we've been scattered through all different parts of the world. And it says, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth and to the other, and there shalt thou serve other gods, which neither thy fathers have known, wood and stone. There we go again, that wood and stone, talking about Christianity and that Islamic thing that a lot of our people are into. And it says, among these nations thou shalt find no ease. And we're not finding no ease here in America. That's why we still talking about no justice, no peace. That's why we still trying to ask them for reparations. You know, we don't find no ease. That's why we hoping that they bring the PPP loans back. We don't find no ease around here. It says, among these nations thou shalt not find no ease. Neither shall thy soul or thy foot have rest. And we don't have no rest. That's why, like, every day we wake up, we like, oh, man, dang, you know, we got to go through this again. You know, and you got to, oh, like, man, I hope I just can't wait till this week is over with. Or I can't wait till tomorrow, you know, because we always waiting until tomorrow. We always got to wait till next week, you know, because we don't have that rest. It says, but the Lord shall give thee a trembling heart. And that's what we have here, a trembling heart and fear and doubt. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, especially when the police get behind you, you see them blue lights. You don't know if you're going to make it out of that situation or not. Those other people don't go through that. They don't have a trembling heart when the police get behind them. They cursing out the police. That's what they do. Then it says, thou shalt have a trembling heart and a failing of eyes and sorrow of mind. You know, depression. That's why we suffer the most from depression. We have the highest rate of depression. You know, I talk to a lot of people on a day-to-day basis that talk about how depressed they are. And certain, you know, meds that, you know, people might have to take for their depression. That's what happens. Especially our women. A lot of our women so doped up off of these depression meds that, you know, that they end up taking. You know, that's being subscribed to them. Because that's what we're going through. It says, a failing of eyes and a sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee. That's, you know, that's why you got a lot of our young boys out here, you know, like, especially we used to, like, man, like, it used to be an accomplishment to, you know, to make it to 21. I mean, it's still accomplishment, you know, for a lot of places and a lot of areas, it's accomplishment to make it to the age 21. You make it to age 25. You're like, oh, man, I didn't think I was going to make it to 25. Oh, I didn't think I was going to be 21. You know, because we have what it says, and thy life shall hang in doubt before thy eyes, and thou shalt fear, shalt fear day and night, and thou shalt have no assurance of life. That's how we living in these streets. We have no insurance of life. Insurance of life. Meaning we don't know if we're going to, you know, because we probably got so much hell going on. We don't know what we did from way back then going to finally catch up with us. Then, you know, we might be living our life. Then all of a sudden, somebody, you know, we don't have that insurance of life. You know, because we be in so much beef and going through so much stuff. Like I said, we don't have that insurance. You know, you can, you know, you don't know if you're going to walk out your door one day, then something, you know, something can happen to you for whatever reason. We don't have that insurance. We have, you know, like I said, that's why it's an accomplishment to make it a certain age level in our community. The so-called Jewish teenager is not talking like that. When the Jewish teenager, like, oh, shit, I didn't think I was going to even get out of high school. Or, shit, you don't hear no Jewish teenager talking about, oh, I don't think I was going to turn 21. They don't talk like that. We do. Why? Because it says, thy life shall hang in doubt before thy eyes, and thou shalt fear day and night. and thou shalt have no assurance of thy life. That's why. Then it says, in the morning thou shalt say, would it be evening? And in the evening, thou shalt say, God, our word was morning. Meaning, like I was saying earlier, uh, basically saying like, oh, I wish this day was over with. Oh, I wish, man, I can't wait till, like, oh, shoot, I can't wait till this whole week is over with. We talk like that. So God's saying, this is how you're going to be. It says that in the morning thou shalt say, would God it were even, and in evening thou should say, would God it were morning. Meaning, you just want the day to go by. Like, man, you just like, man, I just hope this day to hurry can just go by. And sometimes I find myself like that too, just wishing this day would just hurry up and go by before I can get to the next day. And that's how we live. And it says, and the Lord shall scatter thee. This is the final curse. And the Lord shall scatter thee and bring thee into Egypt again. And when you get into that word Egypt, Egypt is synonymous with bondage, with slavery. Because what was the Hebrews doing in Egypt? They were slaves. So God is saying, I would bring you into slavery again with ships. And we know history. We know who went into slavery on slave ships. We did. The so-called curly-haired, small-hat people didn't do that. They don't share the same story. They can tell you about 1940 something, but they can't tell you nothing else. That 1940 something is not in this Bible. You would not read about 1940 something, all right? But you will read about our history for the last 500 years, the stuff that the atrocities that we went through. When you match it up with history, you see how it affects us. So thou shalt bring thee into slavery again with ships. By the way I spake unto thee, thou shalt not see it no more again. Meaning, he's not talking about physical Egypt. He's talking about slavery. That's what it means. And thou shalt not see it no more again. And there thou shalt be sold to your enemies. Who were we sold to? Who the Bible said we were sold to? Our enemies. Mr. Johnson, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Brown, our enemies. That's who we were sold to. You can try to make them your friends if you want, but the Bible says they were our enemies. The people that did this to us were our enemies. It says, and there you shall be sold to your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, meaning slave man and slave woman. And no man shall buy you, meaning we're not going to be redeemed out of this situation. Marcus Garvey tried, Martin Luther King tried, Malcolm X tried, all these different civil rights leaders and people of the past tried. Nat Turner, everybody tried. Harriet Tubman, all of these people tried to redeem us out of the situation. But we're still here, and we're still going through it. Because the only one that's going to save us is the Mashiach Yahweh Shai, who the world calls Jesus Christ. That's who's going to save us. Because he's not going to give that glory to no other man. Like, if Martin Luther King did whatever, was able to help us, then we'll be, praising Martin Luther King for helping us. Malcolm X had did what he did, then we would have been praising Malcolm X. We would have been praising Marcus Garvey. But the Most High want to give that glory to his Son, who the world calls Jesus Christ, whose real name is Yahweh Shai. So that's who's going to get that glory. That's who's going to save us out of these Americas and everywhere else that we scattered to. So, like I said, that's how it's going to go down. And that's why we go through what we go through, because we have to come back to the commandments and keep the laws and statutes of the commandments that was given to us, that the church tells us that we don't have to follow. But we see what we're going through, and so obviously we got to follow it, because the Bible says follow it. You would not read this Bible in no chapter, no book, and do not come across where God is telling you to keep his commandments. You would never ever not, even in the New Testament, anywhere you go, you're going to find it where God says keep his commandments. Point blank, period. Alright? So with that being said, I'm going to end it, so hopefully, that gives a better understanding of who these people is in the Bible and who this Bible is written to, because it's a history book for our people. It's not a book of religion. This has nothing to do with religion. Religion is man-made. God didn't give us religion. God gave us laws and commandments. That's what God gave us. All right, and that's our culture, our heritage, what we're supposed to be doing. Not following all these different religions that our oppressor done came up with. All right, so that's what we're supposed to be doing. So with that being said, I'm gonna say shalom, peace. Hopefully, everybody, got a little edified and understand, who we are according to the Bible prophecies, and understanding history, world history, and how we can match this stuff up. So I'm gonna say peace and shalom. All right.